Many people speak about the books that have changed their lives. And when you normally listen to those type of speeches, you're like, yeah, whatever. I've had two books that have fundamentally shifted the way my mind works. Fundamentally. From when I read them to where I am today, just the way I view the world completely changed. The first and most important book is 1984 by George Orwell. And if you've never read it, please, by all means, get your hands on that book. It is banned in many countries, by the way. It gives a perspective on how the world works, how the elite control people, control their minds, and just control how society operates. But today I want to speak about the second book that has impacted my life in so many different ways. And this is Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. It's a personal finance book. It's about money. So it's like, oh, the money book. Honestly speaking, that book shifted how I view the government, politics, the world, ordinary human beings, money, value creation, value exchange, and put me on a very strong journey of self-awareness and self-discovery as well. Many business people that you'll meet, especially guys in property, will speak about, Rich Dad, Poor Dad really changed my life, Robert Kiyosaki. But for me, it wasn't so much about the money principles, but more the mindset, the psychological shift in the way I viewed the world. We live in a money-driven world. Almost everywhere you go in modern society, if you do not have money, if you're not making money, chances of you having some type of a decent life are very slim. And weirdly, we don't speak about money the way we should. One of the things it does highlight is the lack of financial literacy in our schools. Something that almost every parent, every family, every community is meant to teach children from a young age. I mean, why the hell are you going to school in the first place? You're going there to acquire skills so that one day you can either get a job or you can start a business so that you can make money. But no one talks about money. For many people, the money conversation only starts after you graduated tertiary, now having to speak about how much you're going to earn, your budgeting, can you afford rent, can you afford a car, etc. 2014, if not 2015, Robert Kiyosaki would come to South Africa, hosted by Success Resources, which is a company, Pty Ltd. And I got to watch him live at the Sandton Convention Center. Having been a fan for so long, having bought, I think, about 12 of his books, I was intrigued by how authentic and honest he was, how much he was comfortable with swearing, not because just swearing is a thing, but because he was comfortable with himself. Third year varsity, my partner at the time would tell me about this book that her father had told her to read. He'd given her a warning. He said, look, if you read this book, you might want to quit school. While I was driving with the Rhodes Chamber Choir at the time, I was at Rhodes University, I remember one of my good friends and one of my choir mates, Dominic Gaubepe, saying, look, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a really good book. I'd bump into another mate on campus, Tutugas Pamla, who would also be like, hey, bro, Robert Kiyosaki is a boss. I was like, I need to get this book. I'd speak to my partner at the time. She'd look for the book everywhere because her father had given it to her. And then she went home and she found it and she came back. She hadn't read it at the time and she was like, I found this book you've been looking for. Here it is. And I read it. When you meet someone and you listen to them, Eric Thomas, motivational speaker, is one of them. Tony Robbins would be another. When I'd listen to Bishop T.D. Jakes, Dr. Miles Monroe, when some of you would listen to Andrew Tate, Oprah Winfrey, when you watch the acting of Denzel Washington, the acting of Leonardo DiCaprio, something shifts in you. There are books that you will read in your life, if you're a reader, that will shift how you view society completely. And that book affected me on such a deep level that I ended up going to get other books, the Cashflow quadrant, the sales books, etc., etc. The last book I bought being Why A Students Work for C Students. Robert Kiyosaki became one of my heroes. And I would follow his story for many years, including even recently when He did speak about him being bankrupt. Many people would call him a scam artist. Many people would say, this guy's just a shyster. But I know what he did in my life. And maybe, look, I became part of the cult. Maybe he became my prophet Bushiri. But I can give you real examples of how Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the book and the books, and Robert Kiyosaki fundamentally shifted my life. He introduces a concept called the Cashflow quadrant. ESBI. The E quadrant is for employees, people that have a job, people that have a pay slip, want to earn more, need to budget, need to save money in their pension, etc. The S quadrant is for self-employed or small business. These are people that are professionals, like medical doctors or lawyers, or people that maybe run a spaza shop or an Uber business. You need to be there. When you're not there, you're not making money. You need to be there. You need to be present. Self-employed, small business. Then there's the B quadrant, which is a business system. And this was fundamentally important because when you own a business system, you can walk away and it can still make money for you. It's different from a small business. Small business, self-employed, you need to be there. The business system is where this thing is making what is called passive income. And Rich Dad, Poor Dad would inspire me to even write my own personal finance book called Passive Income, of which I reference and I thank him in that book. And I can only imagine how many other authors out there he has inspired to write their own money books. A business system, the B quadrant. And then the I quadrant is investor, which he claims is the highest level. These are the people now that end up running countries and economies, that own equity in the biggest companies out there. Those companies invest in other companies, run other companies, fund politicians, and they dictate how society should be run. And you'd have a board game, the Cashflow quadrant, which I believe is also played at some of the seminars. Success Resources would bring Robert Kiyosaki back a few times. And they will be bringing him back to South Africa now in September. He will be in Durban on the 20th and 21st of September. I'm going to be making my way down there. I'm going to try and inspire and influence as many people as possible to go and listen to Kiyosaki, to listen to how he simplifies money matters and personal finance. I know they'll be hosting a similar event in Johannesburg on the 13th and 14th of September. This is before Durban. I'm not too sure if Robert Kiyosaki will be around then, but I know they'll be having a whole lot of other speakers there as well. I'm going to mention the speakers later. Another concept that Robert Kiyosaki would put me on is mind your business. It would be in my final year at varsity doing my honors in accounting, where I would embrace and take in the lessons and I'd say, it's time for me to mind my business. It's time for me to build my own business system. The reference that he makes would be McDonald's. Raymond Kroc, having built the McDonald's super business system, inspired by Henry Ford and conveyor belt system of manufacturing cars, and of course, taking it over from the McDonald's brothers. If you've ever been able to watch, The Founder, the movie, he asks, or he speaks about lecturing students, and the students being asked, what business do you think McDonald's is in? All of them are like, everyone knows McDonald's sells burgers. And the lecturer says, no, you're wrong. McDonald's is actually in the real estate property business. What do you mean? If you ever have the chance and the time, please go and research the history of the McDonald's business. Please go and look at the financial statements of the McDonald's business globally. McDonald's owns the most privately owned real estate around the world. They are comparable to the British royal family. They are comparable to the Roman Catholic Church. McDonald's owns real estate. They buy land, they build McDonald's franchises, and then they get a franchisee. The franchisee is trained and they come in and they sell the burgers and everything McDonald's sells. But in essence, that franchisee is paying rent to the McDonald's company. Not only are they paying rent, but they buy their produce from the McDonald's company, which sells the rolls and the patties and the lettuces and the everything to them. But their core business, last I checked, 55% of their revenue was from rental income of their stores. McDonald's is a real estate business. Later on, it would inspire me to realize that businesses like Red Bull, the energy drink. Red Bull sells energy drink as a side business. The real business of Red Bull is marketing. Red Bull is a marketing monster. Excuse the pun. If you look at what they've done with extreme sports, if you look at Red Bull gives you wings, if you look at their Mini Cooper cars with the free samples and the Red Bull girls and the parties and the lifestyle brand that people want to be associated with, you realize that the energy drink is just a side business to their advertising business. And they're not the only ones. If you actually start looking around, you start realizing that some of the businesses that you really think they are core businesses, that you realize it's not. Those of you who are into food, cooking, chefs, cuisine, Jamie Oliver, Gordon Ramsay, Nigella, would know about Michelin stars. The Michelin star rankings rank the most prolific chefs and restaurants around the world. If you get one Michelin star, chances are your restaurant is going to be booked out for a year, if not longer. I stand to be corrected, but I think the maximum might be 3 Michelin stars, which are almost unheard of. The Michelin star ranking for restaurants and food actually come from Michelin tires, weirdly enough. Michelin was looking to sell more tires, and in realizing that they needed to sell more tires, they're like, but how do we get people to buy more tires? Well, people buy tires when their tires have worn out. How do we get people to wear out their tires? They must travel. How do we get people to travel? And they came up with these ideas, and the one they settled on is, let's create this map of all the top restaurants around Europe and influence and inspire and motivate all the people that buy our tires to get this booklet to say, this is a list of all the best restaurants that you can drive to and experience this world of culinary excellence. And the Michelin stars were born. So you might think Michelin stars, what's that got to do with food? You realize that a business was born of something that was ancillary. And again, this becomes something that I would learn through Robert Kiyosaki. Again, I'm telling you, more than just personal finance, the way you view the world. I needed to create my own business. I needed to mind my own business. And I was like, look, I could get a McDonald's franchise. I'd do the research. And at a time, I'd post all the time how much it would cost to buy a Pick and Pay franchise. At the time, Pick and Pay was giving out franchises. They had bought Score, and they rebranded them into Pick and Pay, and they would give them out as BEE franchises. Later on, they'd buy them back. KFC franchise is one of the most sought after in South Africa. Some of the wealthiest people in South Africa own multiple KFC franchises. Owning a Spa franchise. Spa has got one of the best franchise models in South Africa. Some of the wealthiest immigrant families from Portugal, I think from Lebanon, from Greece, started off with mini markets and then later on became supermarkets and later on partnered with Spa, which is actually a Dutch company, to create franchises. And today they are well off. They run these shopping centers. They own these shopping centers. Again, you think their business is just the spa and groceries, but they have a real estate portfolio in Spa franchises. Chicken Licken being a South African success. I stand to be corrected, but I don't think Nando's, one of our success stories globally, I don't think that's a franchise business. But you do the research. And McDonald's, of course. So I was like, do I get a McDonald's franchise? I grew up in Newcastle, in KwaZulu-Natal, born in Madadeni Township. And if you've ever been to Newcastle, you'll know that one of the key landmarks, one of the cornerstones of what Newcastle is today, is a shop called Porto's Fish and Chips. Porto's. Porto's slab chips, deep fried chips, are arguably the best in the world. They're definitely the best in South Africa. I've heard people in Mpumalanga say their slab chips are the best. But a lot of them, it's because of the families that come from the same place, your Portugal, your Greece. Porto's became one of the businesses that I said, if ever I had money, I would invest in this business because we used to eat there all the time. People would buy from there. It became a landmark and it grew. There are probably 5 Porto's shops in Newcastle today, along with a brother store, Peperico. There's another one now, Amigo. I would see them expand to places like Mpumalanga, in Witbank, Emalahleni. I know as of recently, they've now expanded to places like Tshwane, Pretoria, with a Portos, I think near Sunnyside or Arcadia, and a Portos in Hatfield, near the students. I've had the pleasure of meeting the founder of Portos. I've had the pleasure of meeting his wife. He's late, unfortunately, now. I've had the pleasure of meeting his kids. The man who founded Portos is a man known as Francisco Gonçalves Felipe. These are Portuguese people from Madeira in Portugal. The family migrated here in 1970, and they built this business of what they know. And I said, this is what I know, this is what I was going to build. So inspired by Rich Dad, Poor Dad, in my honors year in accounting, I started using some of my money that I was making from TV work. I was shooting commercials, hustling on the side, etc. Again, it inspired me to get into selling T-shirts, because he used to sell Velcro wallets. I think he used to get them supplied from Vietnam after he went to the war there. I'd host events with mates, house parties. I'd sell so many other things, trying to become an entrepreneur and a hustler. I mean, after I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I was like, I need to become rich. Not for anything else, but to be able to afford various things in life. In my honors year, I started taking some of my money and I started building a catering equipment asset base to say one day I will open my own business, which is like McDonald's, like Porto, so that I can mind my business. Once the business is functional and the product is good, I will then focus on my real estate portfolio. It would only be when I started working at Absa Standard Bank head office that I would finally be able to fundraise, using my payslip, by the way. I would be able to fundraise and be able to get the money to open my store. I would meet an amazing entrepreneur, Mr. Gerald Olitsky, who used to be a lawyer, is now a real estate mogul, owning a lot of the real estate in the Johannesburg CBD. And after he gave me advice, after I'd met the founders of Nando's, Robbie Brosen, Fernando Duarte, after I'd met the founder of Taste Holdings, Carlo Gonzaga, after I'd met Roy Correa, who was the brand manager for Fisherways, I would then go and open, and Greg Cohen, sorry, by the way, he was at Bayport at the time. I would go and open my own Penwell's Fish and Chips on Elof Street, just down the road from Gandhi Square in Joburg. I was on my way to doing and implementing the teachings of Robert Kiyosaki. That journey taught me so much about client management, dealing with employees, hiring and firing, pricing, dealing with leases, dealing with lawsuits, not lawsuits, but dealing with legal aspects of the business. I would, when I was writing Passive Income, and when I was writing my other book, The Rise and Fall of the NSC, I would document some of my learnings, good and bad, from running my businesses, again, inspired by Robert Kiyosaki. You can see how much this guy would influence me. I would speak about money every time I went home. My mom and my sister would laugh and be like, oh, he's probably want to talk about money again. I would get my mom to show me her payslip, to show me her debt, to speak about how do we consolidate debt, how do we lower the interest rates or the concessions, how do we as a family have a financial plan, financial goals for 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, for generations, how do we set up a trust and the like, all from following the lessons of Robert Kiyosaki. He changed my life. And I think outside of telling these stories, I also just want to thank Success Resources for bringing him to South Africa. Back then when I saw him, and even now for people that maybe have never heard of him, haven't started on this journey. We have an issue in South Africa and globally of a lack of financial literacy. He references J.D. Rockefeller, one of the wealthiest men of all time, Standard Oil, which would be split up later into Standard Oil, Chevron, Mobil, etc. And how when J.D. Rockefeller became super wealthy, he took over the education policy of America, which would influence the rest of the world. In South Africa, we have our own versions of the people that have built South Africa and who run South Africa economically, financially. The Oppenheimer family, the Rupert family. Today we speak about the Motsepe family. There are the Enthovens. There's Jonathan Bear. There's, may he rest in peace, Eric Sampson, Doe Steyn. Many other families that have built this country into what it is today. Michael Leroux, Martin Marshall, these might relatively new money type of guys. And other hammers. Natie Kirsch, Brian Joffe. These people fund politicians. These people influence political policies. And in many ways, they influence the education that is spread out around the country. If you look at some of our top schools in South Africa, a lot of them are Afrikaans schools. And Afrikaans people embraced rugby as their sport, even though it was founded in England at Rugby College with William Webb Ellis, picking up a football and then running to the other side, and the birth of rugby as a sport. Afrikaners embraced it. So when the National Party would take over government, they would ensure that their sport of choice, being rugby, would be implemented in all of the Afrikaans schools, which is why our rugby schools are the best in the world, why the Springboks are the best rugby team in the world, because the people in power with the money ensured it was so. When you look at the people with money again, these would be the same people that would fund tournaments like Varsity Cup, where a lot of our talent is unearthed. They would fund various tournaments, the Absa Curry Cup. Today we've got a schoolboy tournament called Absa Wilde Klaver. We've got your Craven Week, which is funded by some of the big banks, F&B now, it used to be Coca-Cola. People with money influence society, but they also influence what is taught at schools. And still in 2025, our schools are not teaching children about money. Our kids, yes, they might do accounting, yes, they might do business studies, but they are not understanding entrepreneurship as a culture. Children are not going to school every year and learning how to draft financial statements. This is one of the things Robert Kiyosaki hammers in his books. Learning how to draft and monitor financial statements. I would see a meme with George Clooney saying, financial statements are how you keep score in the real world of how you're doing. Your income statement, your balance sheet. Your income statement having your income and your expenses. Your balance sheet having your assets and your liabilities. Children are not taught financial statements, including your cash flow statements and other such. Children are not taught business. Yes, you've got your market days, which are just a gimmick, but we don't have entrepreneurship as a culture where children are actually running businesses at school every day, where children are running businesses on sports days every weekend, where children during school holidays are given projects to say, all of you will run some type of a business. Whether you are selling boerewors rolls, whether you are selling arts and crafts, whether you are hosting kiddies parties, whether you are babysitting, whether you are tutoring other kids because you are good at maths or accounting, whether you are cutting grass and doing gardening services, whether you are washing cars or washing dogs, whether you are making clothing, whether you are running a real business or going to work in some family member or relative's business. We want all of the kids to have projects every school holiday to make money. The people in power, the rich and their political appointees, they have not added financial literacy as a real lesson in school, considering how important money is. Children are not taught how to manage their taxes, something that affects everyone. You can go to jail for not paying your taxes. People get fined millions of rands. Something so fundamentally important to the running of a country, from your maintenance of roads to your building of schools and clinics to ensuring we have infrastructure to the funding of businesses, is from tax money. And children are not taught how taxes work, how to manage their taxes, how to minimize their taxes. One of the big lessons that Kiyosaki speaks about as well, specifically in the American context, and he always advises people to say, find out what the tax laws are in your own country. How do you legally avoid tax to ensure that you use that money to build your business to scale so that you can redirect it into the things you are actually passionate about that can make an impact in your society and in your community? Kiyosaki would challenge the notion that we are taught in accounting, by the way, that a house is an asset. He said a house is not an asset. An asset is something that brings money in. A liability is something that takes money out. If you are living in a house and every month you're paying rates and taxes, every month you're paying maintenance, the people that are doing the gardening, cutting the grass, every other month something is being fixed, something is leaking, and that piece of commodity is taking money out of your pocket. That cannot be an asset, that's a liability. A house can become an asset if you are running it as an Airbnb, if you are renting it out to tenants, if you own commercial property, and every month it is bringing money into your pocket. Similarly, if you buy a house at 500,000 Rand and you live in it and you're paying expenses, etc., it's a liability. If after 2 years you flip and you sell that house for 1 million Rand, you minus the cost of your expenses and you maybe come out with profit of 350,000. At that point where you sell that house at a profit, it then becomes an asset. And this is something that many people in accounting and finance would challenge him and say Kiyosaki is misleading people. But I thought it was such a simplified, relevant, practical concept. My car is a liability. I am paying a car installment to the bank. I have to pay for my license disc every year. I have to buy new tires every so often. I have to put fuel in. I have to take it to the car wash. I need to get it serviced. My friend who owns 3 vehicles, one of them is a quantum taxi. It's transporting people every day. That's an asset. One of them is an Uber. There's someone that drives a car for him. It is making him money. That's an asset. One of them is an H100 truck, which I used to have. One of the businesses that I used to run was furniture removals. That vehicle is an asset. My vehicle is a liability. Easy concepts that you can teach children. Easy concepts. Last but not least, I'm going to tell the story of Xerox and sales. Kiyosaki comes back from military conscription and he doesn't really know what to do with his life. He's been in the army. I think he was a pilot. I stand to be corrected. And he needed a job. He'd go back to his friend's father, who he termed his rich father, his rich dad. How do I make money? I know you taught us all these lessons when we were kids, but I'm here now, I'm grown. And 2 things were advised to him. Number 1, go to property seminars. Something that Rich Dad is very popular for, something that a lot of the people who were inspired by him would go on to do is host real estate property seminars, how to make money in property, residential, commercial, other types. Go to real estate seminars and then do the hunting. Go and review. Do your due diligence on 100 properties to try and find one. Go to auctions. Go to open houses. Go to areas where people say property is in huge demand. In Johannesburg, maybe you're speaking Midrand, you're speaking Honeydew, you're speaking Fourways, you're speaking Centurion, you're speaking Waterfall. Go to the places where property is in high demand and figure out, do I think property is going to go up here? Or is it going to go down like places like Sunnyside in Pretoria, Yeovil in Johannesburg, Hillbrow in Johannesburg, etc.? Where should I position myself? And Kiyosaki would even give tips that he'd go into certain neighborhoods, park his car, and then he'd just jog around to see how many for sale signs are there. He'd read the newspapers to see what's for sale, what are people buying, where are people moving to, etc. These are lessons that you can implement in your own life. If you've ever watched the movie The Big Short with Stephen Carell, which speaks about the recession and the cause of the recession and the housing and the collapse of the housing market in America, you see a similar exercise where these traders, the small trading house, was finding out about a housing bubble. And they're like, we need to see this on the ground. And they traveled to a specific area and they were going door to door knocking. How are you affording this house? They were speaking to strippers. They were speaking to real estate agents. They were speaking to immigrants to get a feel of what's happening on the ground. These are life lessons. It's like if you want to make money in commodities, go to the DRC, go to Kinshasa and Lubumbashi, go to the people on the ground, go to the mines and just see what's going on there. You might find that your biggest money spinner there is not even going to be mining. It might be maybe housing for the miners. It might be equipment hire. It might be a lot of them don't have entertainment. So you might build cinemas or show halls. They might not have adequate schooling. They might have other skills, just like we do in South Africa, sing and dance. But you can only see that when you're on the ground. Robert Kiyosaki would jog in neighborhoods just to get a feel of what's happening in this neighborhood before he buys. Rich Dad would tell him, you need to learn sales. Grant Cardone, Ty Lopez, I think, almost any money guru you can think of that is worth their salt will tell you about sales. How do I sell? How do I market and push units? ABC, always be closing. I think Glenn Gary and Glenn Ross, that's the name of the movie, one of the best business movies of all time. How do we close deals? How do we get customers to buy in? How do we market best? How do we position ourselves? Sales. Robert Kiyosaki's got books on sales. He's got his sales dogs. Go and learn how to sell. And he was advised that Xerox, I'm not sure if Xerox is still big now, they were selling printing and copying machines. Xerox has got one of the best sales programs in the country, in America at the time. And he went to go and sign up and he became a salesman for Xerox. And he said, you learn rejection. You learn how to shovel shit and be punched in the mouth constantly, over and over. There are many similar programs today. One of my mentors, DJ Sbu, believes in sales. If you look at what he's done, teaching kids about hustling, more fire, getting on the street and being a hawker, they would inspire people like myself, because at a time in varsity when I realized I need to learn sales, I need to learn customer relations, I need to learn to take rejection, I went home. This was in third year. I went home to Newcastle, and that summer holiday, number one, myself and a very close mate, Zamani Ngumalo, we would sell boerewors rolls at a local party spot. We would sell boerewors rolls and make money, sales. Penwell, the top academic student, the top rugby player at school, the top A student, the deputy head boy at Newcastle High, is wearing an overall, selling boerewors rolls. During the day, myself and my brother Penson, we opened a little stall in the middle of town, and we were selling knickknacks, we were selling sweets, we were selling cigarettes, little things that people sell, learning sales. At some point, I went and I bought juice, concentrate. I made juice in a tub. I made like these little ice lollies. It was summer, it was hot. In KZN, we call them isqeda. An ice, flavored ice, in plastic bags. I put them in a bucket. I went to the taxi rank in Newcastle, and I went taxi to taxi, selling to windows. This is my life. This is my journey. This is my story, inspired by Rich Dad, Poor Dad and Robert Kiyosaki, to say, I will learn how to sell. And I would never stop selling. And Robert Kiyosaki would speak about the various streams of income. Rental income, which I'd earn in my life. Royalties. I have books now. I have 13 books that I've written, inspired by him. I earn royalties from my books. He'd speak about one of the income streams is your payslip, your salary, your job. That's an income stream which can allow you to get other income streams using your payslip, leveraging it like a financial statement to go to the bank and say, here, borrow me money. And then you take that money and you build a business like I did with my fish and chip shop as well. He would speak about people that make money from art, their talents. I would make money selling my artworks. I paint, I draw. From people that perform, the singers and I've made money selling mixtapes. I've got 2 mixtapes, hip-hop mixtapes. I've been a speaker. I've made money in that way. Again, following some of the lessons that Kiyosaki had been speaking about. But at the core of it, building a business system. How do you build a business system that can run when you're no longer there? I really hope to bump into some of you. Joburg, 13, 14 September, at the Success Resources event. I'm hoping to bump into you guys in Durban, 2021 September, where Robert Kiyosaki will be there. And if you can meet him, by all means. What is crazy is when you attend these seminars, because many people think they're just a waste of money and they're a scam. I understand why they say that. You're going to a place where you will find like-minded people. You are going to find entrepreneurs and hustlers, and you can network. Robert Kiyosaki might be the hook, but your value might actually be in the people that are attending there. Where else would you meet them? Umlu, I forget Mlu's surname, would own a Pick and Pay franchise or Sizweni Township in Newcastle. I'd go and visit him. He's very passionate about business and I wanted to learn anything. I was introduced to him by my mate Uzaman. He explained how he got into business. We spoke about Robert Kiyosaki. We also spoke about another favorite of mine, Rick Ross. And he spoke about when he was still at TUT, he read Rich Dad Poor Dad and he got into business. And he started off with payphones at TUT. From payphones in the reses, he went into these washing machines, these coin-operated washing machines. And he made money from there. And while he was doing that, again, Kiyosaki says, read newspapers, look for opportunities. He'd read the newspaper and learn about seminars, and he started attending them. And it was at one of these seminars that someone said, hey, you know, Pick and Pay is running this thing. They're looking for black business people to help upscale and own a Pick and Pay. You should go to one of their seminars. And from that networking, he ended up going through the program and getting a Pick and Pay. And he's not the only one. There are many similar stories. When you go to the events in Joburg, when you go to the event in Durban, listen, learn, take notes. It can be very tiring. Speaker after speaker. Focus on why you are there. Why are you there? What are you going to learn? What are you trying to build? What are you trying to figure out? Take the notes. If you can sign up for more specialized training from them, do it. Some of us pay over R1 million to send our kids to school. 12 years. 3, 5, 7 years in tertiary. 1 million, 2 million, 3 million rand of education. Where your child is now a medical doctor protesting in the streets, begging for a job. Where your child falls under the 40% unemployed graduates at tertiary level. Where your child falls into the 60% unemployed kids with the matric. You're happy to spend R1 million for that. But you'll complain about 300 rand, 500 rand, 1,000 rand for a seminar that could change your life. Not only from the lessons there, but more importantly, who are you meeting there? You might bump into Penuel the Black Pen. You might bump into DJ Spoo. You might bump into Bapusha, who's also a hustler and a teacher of hustling and entrepreneurship online. You might bump into Witness Mdaga, who's a property guru in South Africa. You might bump into Nicolette Mashile, the financial fitness bunny. You might bump into Jason Lee, a property guru in South Africa. And these are just popular people I'm speaking about. You might bump into someone there who's like, I supply 10 spaza shops with this thing. I run a trucking business. I've got 5 trucks. They all make me 50, 100,000 rand a month. I'm actually a tenderpreneur. I make money in this way. I actually trade crypto. I'm making good money in Bitcoin, in Ethereum, in XRP, and others. I actually host seminars like this one. So I came to attend this one to just see how a good seminar is run so that I can copy best practice. I actually sell suits. I sell corporate clothing. So I'm here hoping to meet as many corporate people as possible to be able to sell my clothing to them. I sell books or I write books, or I'm a ghostwriter. So I'm here to help people do what, like, the people you are going to meet there are the real gold of attending some of these events. And I'm excited and I'm looking forward to so many of you going to attend, tagging me, and sharing some of your stories, like I'm sharing my story now. We have to be grateful and we have to give flowers while people are alive. I've given Kiyosaki my flowers because, I've bought his books and I've attended his seminars, so I know he's made money off me. But there are so many other people as well. Some of the people that will be attending, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to mention 6 names. These I had to look up because I don't know almost all of these people except for one. Sandy Jadeja is a chief market strategist for financial markets. He's got around 40 years of experience and he's from the United Kingdom. So for anyone who's trading, and I can imagine a lot of the trading companies are probably going to be paying for a lot of their employees and traders to go attend just to listen to him. A lot of the banks as well who have trading desks are probably going to be sending people to go and listen to Sandy Jadeja, speaking with his almost or around 40 years of trading experience. Abang Abu is actually a motivational speaker, financial coach, and is a serial entrepreneur. He's from Singapore and Malaysia. People speak about Singapore all the time and how it managed to turn itself around and become an economic powerhouse. I'm hoping Abang is going to be speaking about that as well. And you guys will be able to learn about some best practice in Asia. Paul O'Mahony from Ireland is a speaker, is an entrepreneur. He's a 9-time multi-best-selling author. His books have been featured in Forbes, in United States best-selling lists, etc. He's going to be sharing some of his knowledge as well. Usis Longnyamazi, you guys might know her. She featured at some point on The Real Housewives of Durban. Usis Utobegile, Mamchali Ndlovu. She's a South African entrepreneur. She's the founder and managing director of Tobe Tulane Trading CC, which is a female-owned construction and building company. Especially those of you who want to know how construction building tenders work. I mean, Umam Kize, one of our favorite celebrities in South Africa, built her wealth from tenders. Tenders are not something that we're meant to look down on as much as some people use them for looting, for political patronage and the like. Every South African who's interested in business should have a company that's listed on the central database that is doing some type of tender, because a tender is you servicing society using tax money. And hopefully Usisu Tobegiri will be able to educate around some of that and her lessons, especially as a black woman. Andrew Walker is an accomplished commercial leader with over 20 years of senior management experience across B2B and B2C sectors, SMEs, and large corporations. Andrew is also going to be sharing some of his stories, his education, his knowledge at the seminars. And then last but not least of the people that I'm mentioning, Scott Picken, South African, who is the co-founder of Wealth Migrate, a fintech company that offers real estate investments on its online marketplace through crowdfunding. If for nothing else, man, please attend these seminars just so that we can all bump into each other, meet, network, and be able to make money together. People normally don't know where to go to network. Where do I meet fellow hustlers, fellow entrepreneurs? Must I go to church? Do I go to certain school events? These are the events. And you don't have to attend all of them. You'll end up actually spending and wasting a lot of money. But like I said, if you figured out your why it is that you're going there, and you are intentional, you can go to those events and you don't even need to be there the whole day. To be honest, you might even be like, I'm not going there for Kiyosaki. I don't care about him. I've seen Kiyosaki, I've met him. Or to be honest, I don't care about Kiyosaki. I think he's a scam artist, if that's what you want to say. But you're like, I know that Kiyosaki and his brand and the Rich Dad company is able to pull some of the most successful entrepreneurs in the country and probably from even outside the country. Those are the people I want to go and meet. And I'm going to pay this price to attend, and I'm going to spend the whole day moving around seats. I'm not going to sit in one place. And every now and then I'm going to go outside to see if there are people that are having a coffee, people that are busy having a smoke, people that are busy chatting to each other. And I'm going to go up and introduce myself. Hi, I'm Pen. How are you? I'm a podcaster. This is what I do. I'm looking for entrepreneurs with a great story. I'd like to profile you. Or I'm looking for sponsors for my podcast. Or I'm looking for investors in my podcast. I write books. I'm looking for distribution outlets. I have a database of entrepreneurs, of business people, of funders. How can I help you guys connect with these people at a commission, at a fee? Who dresses you? Where do your kids go to school? How did you travel here? Maybe I can help you with transport. Maybe I've got friends that have guest houses and Airbnbs, and let's connect in that way. That's what business is. That's what entrepreneurship is. And I can tell you now, from when I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, all the years back, if I could be able to quantify the millions of rands that I've made from those lessons, the human beings that I've met, some of which I've mentioned, some you've seen me interview on podcast interviews, the people that have allowed me to travel abroad, the way it has shifted the way I view the world, the way I respect migrants. I mean, Kiyosaki is not white. Even though he grew up in Hawaii, he's got Asian blood. A lot of the people I'm mentioning here are not even South African. We're speaking people from the UK, from Ireland, from Singapore, from Malaysia, coming to teach. The way I grew to respect Nigerians, Malawians, Mozambicans, Zimbabweans, who have an eye for opportunity, who are willing to work, who are willing to collaborate with other people, who know how to fundraise in intelligent and innovative ways to build their businesses. If you look at what the Pakistanis, the Bangladeshis, the Somalians, the Ethiopians have achieved in South Africa. I recently downloaded a TikTok video speaking about the Patel family in America from an Indian-looking man. And he was telling the story of the Patels, who are a couple of generations, have lived in America, and how they've cornered commercial real estate. How they started off by getting a small little flat as a family, living in it, the five of them, and then buying up the entire complex. I think they started off with a motel. They'd put money together. They'd buy up an entire motel, but they'd only live in a few of the rooms, and then they'd rent out the rest of the rooms to make money. From the money that they made, they'd then buy the next motel, and then they'd recycle the same thing, where today they own Hilton hotels, they own Marriott hotels. A lot of the big hotels and real estate are owned by the Patel family. Migrants, immigrants. If you listen to someone like Gary Vaynerchuk, also from an immigrant family, and what he's built as a marketing machine in America. When you look at Larry Page, not him per se, but Sergey Brin of Google, the Google founders, immigrant families. If you look at the families that have built South Africa, a lot of them, the Oppenheimers, the Hersoffs, these are not native South Africans. These are immigrants that came here. I referenced Francisco Gonçalves Felipe, the founder of Portos in Newcastle, which South Africans, people from Newcastle love. Immigrants. There are Indians in Durban that are copying the same model of the Patels, that are going around buying property. Kiyosaki speaks about the game of Monopoly and how in the game of Monopoly, you buy a street, you put up 4 little greenhouses, and you convert them into a red hotel. And he says that should be the model in real life. You go into a space, you open a little spaza shop, you and your family of 5. You, your brother, your sister, your mom, your dad. You open a little spaza shop and you're like, we will all work here. We will live off this spaza shop. We'll build a little back room to sleep in. And then once we've filled up this spaza shop, we will take the profits here and then we'll open the next one. And then Penwell, you stay here. Penson, go to the next one. We do the same thing. After that one, Penrose, you go open one. We do the same thing. That is the model that has been used in South Africa and around the world. South Africans have stokvels. If you look at what stokvels mean, the power of leverage, the power of economies of scale, stokvels should be used to fund small businesses that can grow into big businesses. They would call them cooperatives. Fancy term for a formalized stokvel, but Clover, as a huge agricultural company in South Africa, dairy mostly, was built off a group of farmers, if I'm not mistaken, in Mooi River, Escort, that came together and said, let's pool funds and resources and be able to bulk sale and be able to get big contracts with stores. If you look at the story of Afgri, similar story. A bunch of farmers that said, let's pool our land, our resources, our grain, our seeds, and let's put together a funding model, a cooperative financial instrument is what it's called today, financial institution. And they built Afgri into a multi-billion rand company today. If you look at Absa as the biggest retail bank in South Africa, one of the 4 banks that amalgamated to build Absa, along with United Allied Trust, would be Volkskas. Folk, people, kas, chest. The people or the folks' chest. Afrikaans people coming together, pooling money, stokvel, to build their own bank. This would be replicated in Orania, which I had the pleasure of visiting. They build their own bank now. You've got Ntabeleng Dikgotsi with YWBN, Young Women in Business Network, who's got her mutual bank, that's on its way up. Stockfels and the power of using that to build businesses. Lessons that I'd learn again from Kiyosaki. I made this video as an ode to Robert Kiyosaki. I want to say thank you very much. I want to thank his wife, who's also very influential in the books and her lessons. I want to thank all the Rich Dad advisors that have helped Kiyosaki. I want to thank him for coming up with the board game of the Cashflow quadrant. I could be wrong, but I think when Nicolette Mashile, the financial fitness bunny, would look into her kiddies finance books, her board game as well, those would be some of the inspirations. And I know she's not the only one. There are many similar. The opportunity that Success Resources would give us in watching Robert Kiyosaki live back then, the ability now to go and watch him again, as old as he is now, and the decades of wisdom that he's passed on, the ability to get to an event and be able to network with like-minded people and to kickstart your business journey or to grow your business journey or to grow your database of business connects. This is how we meet people. I've had the pleasure of getting to know some of the guys at Success Resources, the South African office at least, and I want to say thank you to them for allowing me to see my hero, meet my hero. It means a lot to me. And yeah, I think I'll just close it there. Let's connect. Let's come together. Let's push business. Let's make money. Let's make a real positive impact in our communities. And maybe you can become the Robert Kiyosaki of the future. You can become the Robert Kiyosaki of your neighborhood, of your family. And you can become the person that took your family from poverty into extreme wealth and to extreme impact of society. See you guys in Joburg on the 13th and 14th of September, and then in Durban on the 20th and 21st of September. Shout out to Success Resources. Shout out to Robert Kiyosaki. Pen you all the black pen. Cheers.